Hello. I would like to thank the Learning Revolution and the Emergency Home Learning and More Summit for having me present to you today. My name is Margo LaPointe. I am the co-founder and executive director of Seaview Learning. We're based in Massachusetts, and more information about me and what we do can be located at www.seaviewlearning.org. If you're interested in contacting me, I can be reached at margolapointe33@gmail.com. Today, I'd like to discuss with you the antidote, prioritizing wellness and education. I have a spoiler alert for you. A vaccine is not what will save us from the plague that has blanketed our broken American and global community. There is no magic pill that will propel us to a healthy, balanced, successful future or prepare our students for their futures. Pre-COVID systems were outdated, designed for a now antiquated economy, and outputting a failure to thrive product. But before we discuss an antidote for what's ailing us, we need to scope data and outcomes of the pre-COVID models we knew. The pre-COVID systems, long before COVID-19 stopped our world as we knew it on a dime in March 2020, we had been plagued by other deadly epidemics. There was the mental health pandemic, people self-medicating with opioid epidemic, drug overdoses, spike in suicide rates, suicide being the leading cause of death for teens. Leading economists and business leaders forecasting the job market is changing rapidly. Artificial intelligence was replacing jobs, requiring today's students to develop a new skill set, with the current education models not preparing them for that future. MIT economists Andrew McAfee and Eric Brynjolfsson, global leader Jack Ma, all preaching this information to us. The education models. What is the purpose of education? We were dealing with the dropout crisis, standardized testing for an antiquated job market. Folks like Ted Dintersmith, Tony Wagner, and Sir Ken Robinson sharing this information with us long before COVID existed. Prior to the COVID-19 pandemic, we were dying from a mental health epidemic. People were self-medicating. From 1999 to 2018, almost 450,000 people died from an overdose involving an opioid, including prescription and illicit opioids. That information comes from the Center for Disease Control. Suicide and self-harm spiked. Social media has led to a tripling of self-harm among preteen girls in the United States and a staggering 150% rise in suicides. Suicide is the second leading cause of death for college-age youth ages 12 to 18. More teenagers and youth adults die from suicide than from cancer, heart disease, AIDS, birth defects, stroke, pneumonia, influenza, and chronic lung disease combined. The number of drug overdose deaths was 4 times higher in 2018 than in 1999. 128 people die every day from a drug overdose. This rise in opioid overdose deaths can be outlined in 3 distinct waves. The first wave began with increased prescribing of opioids in the 1990s, with overdose deaths involving prescription opioids increasing since at least 1999. The second wave began in 2010 with rapid increases in overdose deaths involving heroin. The third wave began in 2013 with significant increases in overdose deaths involving synthetic opioids, particularly those involving illicitly manufactured fentanyl. Social media has led to a tripling of self-harm among preteen girls in the United States and a staggering 150% rise in suicides. It is the leading cause of death for ages 10 to 24. It is the leading cause of death for college-age youth in ages 12 to 18. Each day in our nation, there are an average of 3,703 attempts by young people in grades 9 through 12. If these percentages are additionally applied to grades 7 and 8, the numbers would be higher. The Netflix series, The Social Dilemma, articulates that the spike in self-harm among preteen girls and the spike of a 150% rise in suicides correlates with social media. Our youth are detached. They're staring into their screens and they're spending their time in a cyber world of social media, a cyber world that has drastic effects on their actual realities. What is happening in our country? It's not only our country. This is happening throughout our global community. The World Health Organization shares key facts. Close to 800,000 people die due to suicide every year. For every one suicide, there are many more people who attempt suicide every year. A prior suicide attempt is the single most important risk factor for suicide in the general population. Suicide is the third leading cause of death in 15 to 19-year-olds. 79% of global suicides occur in low and middle-income countries. Ingestion of pesticide, hanging, and firearms are among the most common methods of suicide globally. What's happening in our world? What's happening in our global community with our youth? These are the outcomes of our educational models. While the link between suicide and mental disorders, in particular depression and alcohol use disorders, is well established in high-income countries, many suicides happen impulsively in moments of crisis with a breakdown in the ability to deal with life stresses, such as financial problems, relationship breakups, or chronic pain and illness. In addition, experiencing conflict, disaster, violence, abuse, or loss, and a sense of isolation are strongly associated with suicidal behaviors. This information comes to us from the World Health Organization. So then, if this is already happening pre-COVID, and the outcomes of the systems and models and matrix that we were existing in and operating in and designing our lives around were resulting in suicides and self-medicating nationally and globally. And then a large component of this is that the suicides were happening impulsively in moments of crisis. Then people committing suicide are lacking conflict resolution skills and coping skills and the soft skills that we need to design a functional life and navigate the world ahead of us. Self-isolation, sense of isolation are strongly associated with suicidal behavior. That is what the World Health Organization is telling us. Isolation are strongly associated with suicidal behavior. What is happening with the current public school academic model and their reaction to COVID-19? Students are isolated. Families are isolated. The students are being plugged into a computer screen in their homes, isolated. Prior to the COVID-19 pandemic, our job market was on the precipice of evolving from the industrial era into the second machine age rapidly. MIT economists Andrew McAfee and Eric Brynjolfsson authored The Second Machine Age, as well as Machine Platform Crowd, wherein they are shouting from the rooftops, trying to tell us that the economy that we knew was rapidly evolving and changing and breaking into something that we have never seen before, and that it was coming fast, and that today's students needed to be better prepared to inherit those futures and that job market and that economy that they would be navigating. The global economy was on the cusp of a dramatic growth spurt driven by smart machines that finally take full advantage of advances in computer processing, artificial intelligence, networked communication, and the digitalization of just about everything. The job market is shifting as a result of technology, and while many jobs as we know them will be replaced by technology, there will be greater demand for high-level programmers and special needs teachers. The transition, they suggest, could be made smoother if our education system were reoriented from its industrial era focus on math and reading to a broader set of personal and intellectual soft skills necessary for working alongside the smart new machines. March 2020, COVID-19 hand delivered this into our homes when classrooms closed and classrooms formulated onto technology and devices into our homes. The future is now. The second machine age is now, and today's students are the first to adapt. But this isn't just happening in our nation. Throughout the global community, successful business leaders are recognizing the need to change the academic model. In September 2019, Jack Ma retired as founder of Alibaba to focus on education, which he calls, quote, the most important and critical issue of our time. His concern, the world is changing fast, but education is not. His position is, the brain will be replaced by machines, but machines can never replace your heart. And he advocates a model focused on developing soft skills. So what is the purpose of education? Schools today are based on an education model dating back to 1893, designed to prepare students for an economy shifting from agriculture to manufacturing. They changed the one-room schoolhouse into our current factory model. This model of universal public education prepared youth for factory jobs. Students shuffle from subject to subject in class periods punctuated by ringing bells. They memorize, cram, and drill on low-level material. They jump through hoops and standardized testing, developing skills for jobs that no longer exist. Nationally, we sound alarm bells about our mediocre global ranking in education. More information on this topic can be found by Ted Dintersmith in Most Likely to Succeed. Education advocates, including famed Tony Wagner and Sir Ken Robinson, have been leading the rallying cry for many years pre-COVID that the American academic model is not preparing our students with the skills they will need to navigate the future job market they would inherit. They adamantly declare that schools need to prioritize students' soft skills to prepare them for their futures. Collaborative leadership, problem solving, conflict resolution, among others, and switching from standardized testing to a competency-based system where a high school diploma becomes a certificate of mastery. If then the purpose of education is to give students tools to succeed in the world, the American model broke long before March 2020 when COVID-19 stopped it in its tracks, replaced classrooms with technology, and indubitably delivered the dawn of the second machine age economy to our children right into our homes. The future is now, and today's children are the first generation to begin to adapt. So how are the American public schools adapting? What's happening? What is their response to COVID-19? They're developing models based on sickness and educational inequity. Students are at home, plugged into a screen all day. Students are trying so hard to navigate the new tech platforms that they are missing content. Many students are in tears from the spike in stress. Students are indoors all day in spaces that are sanitized with chemicals in fear of COVID-19. Students are isolated from peer groups. Students are masked when outdoors. Students are discouraged from groupings with peers. This model is counterintuitive to every study that has proven the benefits of wellness as far as time in nature, time outside, time receiving vitamin D from the sun, grounding in the earth, relationship building. All of the things that maintain our mental health have been stunted. So what are the effects of crisis schooling? That's what this really is. The public school academic model, in at least my area, is not homeschooling, and they are not public schooling. They are crisis schooling. They did not have the resiliency and ability to manage an abrupt change in this historic time. My town has amazing teachers and an amazing educational team, but they were ill-equipped and they were not prepared. They were not given the tools they needed to cope with this environment and this new normal. They're doing the best they can and they're adapting as fast as they can, but this current system is failing our students and failing our teachers. They're placed in an impossible task. Not only am I an educational professional in the world of alternative education and an experienced educator, I'm a mom. I'm a mom of two. And my children were attending school when March 2020, everything shuttered its doors. And my home, my kitchen table became a one-room classroom, like the old school houses during the lockdown. And what I witnessed was a scrambling of teachers, a scrambling of students trying to understand, trying to navigate the new normal. But what really was happening was content knowledge fell by the wayside, and it was replaced with teachers, my kids' teachers, struggling to prioritize continuing relationships, continuing support, mental health, trying to reach out and keep those relationships alive and show the children that they were supported. It was a very interesting and poignant time in our academic model where relationships and mental health had a spotlight on them as a priority during a time of crisis. What are the effects of crisis schooling? What are the effects of creating a fear-based academic model founded on sickness that further perpetuates and exacerbates the failure of the pre-COVID model? Preparing our students for a new economic era falls by the wayside as mental health crises spike and content knowledge is lost in translation of learning new tech platforms. Further, this model wedges a clear divide in American society in regard to educational equity. Many students across the country do not have Wi-Fi or even a parent able to be home with them during work hours, let alone a device to follow along with their class. Notably, private schools have continued with business as usual and in-person learning. In my town, there has been an exodus of students pulled from public schools as their families place them into private schools. What is the big picture here? What is the translation? What is this going to mean for our children? The translation is that the educated, affluent, and successful will have their children's education unaffected by the COVID crisis, continuing that their children will continue on being educated, affluent, and successful, while those without will continue the cycle of little education, mental health crises, and effectively little opportunities and not as bright a future, creating a very clear division of classes for our children's futures. Rest assured, fear not. I have something to share with you. I discovered an antidote to a model that's based on sickness. And I have outcomes to share of a model that's based on wellness. In September 2016, I founded an innovative hybrid school. I redefined the definition of success. Success in my school had nothing to do with numbers. It had nothing to do with tests, exams, class placement, or outcomes related to how big your number would be on a paycheck when all was said and done with your education. It had no numbers, and it was not involved in the matrix of society that so many others have been conditioned to design their life around. I threw out the playbook. I prioritized wellness. We did not have tests and exams or numbers in my school that labeled a student with a number. Instead, we had comprehension-based progress. The definition of success in my school was focused on wellness, work-life balance, and it was really a pilot program to find out what happens when someone prioritizes wellness and develops their soft skills and their coping skills and all of these healthy tools. Will it better prepare them for their futures? And how will it affect their work-life balance with the business that they have as children, which for them would be academics? By February 2017, within 5 months, 70% of our students had completed their academic grade level, seamlessly advancing grade levels the very next day. What does this mean? It means that within 5 months, from September to February, 70% of our students had completed, say, second grade in their academics. The next day, moving on to third grade. Most notably, of that subset, 100% of those students had been previously diagnosed with a learning disability when enrolled in public schools. In public schools, they had a very different experience. They were given labels and they were treated differently than the other students. By the end of June 2017, by the end of that school year, when graduating the year program, the first year program, these students had excelled academically and had developed soft skills so well that they voluntarily featured presentations on a stage to a crowded auditorium enthusiastically. How did I do it? How did I unlock academic success, remarkable outcomes, when I wasn't focused on a matrix, when I wasn't focused on numbers or tests or exams? How did I do this? And how did the students not only excel academically, but develop such strong soft skills and confidence and work-life balance that they were eager to develop the strong skills of standing up and presenting in front of a crowded auditorium their work when they came to me in September in a very different position? How did this happen? I'll tell you how it happened. First, we had the foundation. I developed our day around lifestyle practices that were scientifically proven to create a life of wellness. That is my whole foundation. That is what the entire school was designed on. The content, the model was also designed to reflect what a real world workplace will be like as adults. In the real world workplace, we're not sitting next to colleagues that are the same age as us, all working on the same project, all learning the same thing in the same space. Instead, I had mixed age classrooms. I had independent study mixed with classes in foreign language, art, nature, reading, writing, workshops. The delivery, also extremely notable and very important to this situation. Soft skills were developed through vehicles which included project-based learning, collaborative leadership, case studies, problem solving, and more. The result was preparing today's students for their futures, giving them tools which they could develop at their own pace independently and collectively with their peers in a space that would reflect their future, and what their job market will be like, and what actually the environment and circumstances of a real world economy will be like for them. But how can prioritizing wellness and education become the antidote during the pandemic? With all these different school models, every student's different. Some are hybrid, where they go in school a few days, they're home remote learning a few days, or they're homeschooling altogether, opting out of this system, or any mix of the above. There are so many different models floating around in the American public school model right now. So I'm here to tell you something, right? If the problem we are facing is fear and sickness, then the antidote is love and wellness. This is true for ourselves, not only our students. Number one, don't panic. Don't push the panic button. Understand, academics can excel outside of a brick and mortar model, especially one that was ineffective and on the cusp of obsolescence at that. The students I served in my hybrid model were registered as homeschoolers, and the students that attend my microschool today are a mix of homeschoolers and remote learners. The translation is this: kids don't need a public school to learn. Toss out the playbook and design a learning plan that is customized to better suit your child. Number two, make a plan. What is the purpose of education? I keep going back to that. What is the purpose of education? And let's be the CEOs of our own lives, of our own children's education, and critically evaluate whether or not what we're seeing benefits them. Learning is taking place in our homes now through computers. This is an opportunity. This is an opportunity for us to monitor and experience what the system is that our children is learning, and does it work for them? Is this benefiting them? Then design your plan from there. If it is to give your student tools to navigate a healthy, happy, successful future, let's think about what that means. When wellness is prioritized, work-life balance will follow. Healthy, happy, balanced life. Dr. Roger Walsh has scientifically proven 8 ways to well-being, therapeutic lifestyle practices that create a life of wellness. Develop them into your plan. There's time in nature. Take lessons outside. Study after study proves the benefits of a living classroom or an outdoor classroom. Nutrition. Develop learning about nutrition into your plan and create opportunities for your student to participate in meal prep. Recreation, commonly known as self-care. Unplug and have some recreational fun. It's very important to your mental health. Relaxation, learning healthy coping skills. Meditation, deep breaths, unplugging, giving yourself downtime is fundamental not only as students but as adults. Exercise, healthy stress relief practices like yoga, going for a walk together are important every single day. In all weather. If it's inclement weather, just dress appropriately and get outside. Giving back. Think of some fun acts of kindness you can do during this time. There are a lot of people in need during the pandemic, and we're soon approaching the holidays, which is also a great time to deliver some acts of kindness. Maybe some surprise care packages. You could make them fun and include toilet paper and masks and sanitizer, as well as some treats or crafts, or combine your students' art with writing and have them design a card with a note to include into the package. And then there is relationships, another component. Do not isolate. Create a collaborative project with friends that you can do together over Zoom, or connect outside for that walk. Pick up the phone, connect daily. A lot of these practices can be combined. It doesn't have to be one at a time. When you sit down and you prioritize wellness into your plan, everything else follows suit, and your students' academic success and your work-life balance will follow suit as well. I read this quote the other day. If a child can do advanced math, speak 3 languages, or receive top grades but can't manage their emotions, practice conflict resolution, or handle stress, none of that other stuff is really going to matter. Nothing has ever been more true to what I believe. The most important takeaway our children will carry with them during this historic time in our country is less about politics and masks and more about watching us, their parents, and their teachers. How we demonstrate resilience, adaptability, managing emotions, conflict resolutions, and stress management. What we do when something breaks, and how we innovate to build something better out of that rubble. Healthier, happier, more successful. This is what they will need to know long after we are gone. These are the soft skills that Jack Ma, Andrew McAfee, Eric Brynjolfsson, Tony Wagner, Ken Robinson, and Ted Dintersmith have been shouting from rooftops that our students will need for their futures. The future is now, and we are their teachers. Wellness is at the core of all success. Thank you.